Welcome to Ed 200. We are here with Jamie Newbold and her son and daughter, Veda and Liam. They are here to share their picture book with us. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you.
Veda and Liam. Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to share your book with future teachers at LCC because it is a story that children can relate to and learn from. The illustrations are unique and enjoyable, and you guys were a major part of that, right? Yeah. So, Jamie, will you please share with us how you came up with the idea for your book?
Yeah, one of the things that I always do first when I'm writing a paper or doing a project for school, or in this case, the picture book, I always try to think of a topic that I'm passionate about and something that I know that I'll be really excited to write about and, of course, bring to the classroom someday. And the topic of my book is grace, and it's something that my kids and I talk a lot about at home, and it's something that I know I'll want to discuss with my future students. And so initially I was thinking, what's something that is something that my kids and I have been talking a lot about, something that I can really stand behind and will be excited to bring to my students, but then also what's something that is real to my life in this moment. And a lot of the events that happen in the book are actually real life events and things that have happened to either myself or my kids, and so I was excited to get to try to put that into a story. And because it's real life, I thought that might help my my story feel a little more realistic, and it might be something that my students could wrap their minds around and in a really real way. So yeah, I think that all of those things factored into my story.
Great, thank you. How did you overcome any challenges you faced while in the writing process?
Well, I think because I picked a topic that I was really passionate about, that my story became almost a mission. And so any challenge that arose, it wasn't, it didn't deter me too badly, because I was so wanting to see this book to completion. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's inevitable that little hiccups will present themselves along the way, but because I was writing about something that I was really passionate about, that really helped make them not seem as intimidating. I'd have writer's block every once in a while. Sometimes I'd have to just put the book aside for a good day or two and come back to it at a later time. That helped. The illustrations didn't always go the way I thought that they were going to go. Those are the two that I can think of right now that I just had to, I guess, be flexible and willing to change things in the moment. And my original plans, sometimes I had to just scratch those all together and go a totally different route. And so the whole process was a journey. But like I said, because I was writing about something that I really believe in, and grace and the virtue of grace, it helped the challenges not seem so great or scary.
Great. And so you talked about the illustrations, mm-hmm. which are very unique, and they are so fun. And you used your children as a model. Tell us why you chose to do this and how you made it work.
Well, I'm always, as a mom and a student, it's tricky to juggle the two. And whenever possible, I love bringing my kids into my school life. It's a life that they don't always get to. I can't always bring them to school, to class, or involve them as often as I'd like. But this was a great opportunity to involve them in my school life. And not only was it an opportunity, but it was really encouraged by yourself and by Meryl to let your family and your friends be part of this process. And so I really heeded that advice, and I knew that I wanted to bring Liam and Veda in one way or another. And so anyways, initially I thought it'd be fun to do kind of like a collage art where I'd cut out from magazines different, maybe a body on a bike or a body doing some sort of an action, but I would use their faces as the faces of these people that I was. Anyways, what that didn't end up happening at all. What ended up happening is we more or less staged kind of a classroom at our house, and I took pictures of Liam and Veda acting as the characters in the book, and they were amazing, and their expressions were perfect, and they really, really helped me convey the emotion of the book. So I was so thankful. I have budding actor and actress on my hand, apparently. And what I ended up doing is taking those pictures, and I uploaded them onto my computer, and then used a free online editing program and edited their pictures to look kind of like watercolor paintings. It was very simple. I'm not a very techie person, and I simply Googled free online editing and found befunky.com. And it was very user-friendly and just kind of playing around, and it landed with the kind of the watercolor look that I ended up going with, and the end result was great. It was a really fun process. Glad to get to involve my kids in that way.
I would agree. The pictures are absolutely fabulous. It was one of the funnest parts of hearing your book, was being able to see the pictures.
Yeah, well,
and
thank you.
I think everyone in the class was just like, oh my gosh, how did she do that? And to know that there really was kind of a process that you stumbled into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was very simple. I mean, if I can do it, anyone can do it. So it was very simple and really fun to get to use people that are special to you, to get to bring them into your story is a really special experience.
Yes, and thank you for bringing the real life characters with you today. So, Veda, how did you like being part of your mom's picture book?
It was really fun because I got to be a part of it, and I got to have fun with my family and have fun with, be silly with my brother, and that's why I really like being a part of my mom's picture book.
Great.
I really like doing it because I got to be included into my mom's school life, and it was really fun because usually my mom gets to come into my school life at times, but I never get to come into hers. So it was sort of fun, me actually being able to go into her story and become a character who I necessarily wasn't, but still you can feel like a resemblance between, at times, who you're being. So that was really fun.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing. So, what do you think about your mom's book?
I think it was a really good lesson for kids who don't really know Grace very well, and who needs to work on Grace. I just think it's a good lesson, and I think it's really well written, and I think it's fun to see me, my brother, and my dad to be in a book. So, yeah.
I think the book is a really good book because it has a good message. It has a message that no matter what, you should always give somebody a second chance. And one of the ways Rosie found that out was by a real life story event of my sister, my dad, and I in a parking lot. And it my mom added a few little tweaks to the story, mixed up some characters a little bit, but this one scene where they're going to an ice cream store was pretty much based on a real-life Market of Choice parking lot event.
Wow.
So that was fun, seeing my life actually being turned into someone else's.
Thank you so much for sharing, both of you. It's neat to see your reactions as the characters from the book. So, Jamie, would you share any worries or concerns you had in Ed 200 when you were faced with the idea of creating the picture book for class?
I think it was just the logistics. I had never done something like that before. So it wasn't so much a fear of actually writing a story. It was more, how do you do this? And where do I take it? And more just the logistics of it. But I didn't even need to worry about those because, you know, you and Meryl are so quick to lend a hand or to give reminders or suggestions or helpful hints. So I think that any sort of challenges or concerns I had were quickly dissolved just by, you know, being reassured through you and Meryl that that it was going to be okay, and answering some questions that I had about the logistics of it all. And Meryl met with me a couple times, and I took my book to a few of my peers, and so they were able to help steer me along the way through the process of writing it. So yeah, I am happy to say it wasn't there weren't too many things that worried me about the process, just because it's pretty well laid out. And
So it sounds like just the normal jitters of
Yeah,
how do you even do this?
yeah,
But it seems like you found the support that you needed and it worked out okay.
Yes, and I think
Good.
I was thinking about too much too fast, and I needed to kind of pick one thing and work with that and pick another thing, and I would bring questions to you and Meryl. So don't be afraid to talk to you and Meryl, and to bring it to your peers and to bring it to your kids and have people read it and tell you what they think about it. And so yeah, that was a huge help.
Great. And so how do you feel about your book now that it's complete?
I am so proud of my little story, and I could nitpick it, and every time I read it, I maybe read a line that if I were to rewrite it, I would probably write it differently, or I look at an illustration and think, oh, I probably would have added this instead, so I could nitpick it, but ultimately, that's kind of besides the point. Ultimately, what I have is something that I truly am proud of, and I'm excited to bring it to the classroom. And even the little errors, I'm excited for my students to see that, because none of us are perfect, and our projects usually don't go exactly the way we want them to, and that's okay. The fact of the matter is I wrote a story that I can really stand behind, and it's grace is just such a virtue that I am excited to bring to my classroom. So yeah, ultimately, I'm just really proud of it. I love reading it to kids. I read it to my nieces and nephews, and I got to read it in a practicum classroom. And of course, I read it to Liam and Veda, and they like to share it to their friends who come over. So, and it really is. It was such a gift of a project, and it's a gift that is going to keep on giving as I become a teacher. So I'm happy with the way it turned out.
Great. Like you have shared it with your practicum kiddos, and do you have future plans on continuing to share it?
Yes, absolutely. One thing that I've been learning a lot about in class recently is those first couple weeks of school, and how that's a very crucial time. And I'll be someone who places high value on community and unity within the classroom, and will really want to bring the topic of grace. I'll want to bring it right away. So I can see myself using it, reading it, bringing it to the class just that first week of school, and talking openly about grace, and and then I'd like to refer back to it as the year goes along. And in fact, one of the greatest compliments I received on my book, I read it to my 5th grade practicum class, and it was one of the first couple weeks of school. And since then, I've visited this classroom, and the teacher said, we bring up, grace comes up a lot in our classroom. We talk about it a lot. We go back to your book and we talk about having grace for one another. And I was just so, I think my chin dropped. I was so excited to hear that, that it had some sort of an impact. And that was a huge compliment. So yes, I definitely plan to bring it to my classroom and to read it to my students, probably right from the get-go, and hope that it's something then that has a lasting effect and I can refer back to it, and grace can be a topic that is alive and well in my classroom, something that we give and also something that we receive from one another.
Absolutely. Those character skills are so important,
Yes.
even though they're not
Yeah.
in what we're supposed to teach. We're supposed to teach it, and that's, your book is such a fabulous example of how we can do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So any final thoughts about how you plan to share your picture book with students or in interviews in the future?
Yeah, well, like I said, I hope to present it to my students right from the start, and would love, of course, for it to have some sort of a lasting effect on them. And then for interviews, I think that my picture book is kind of like a portfolio, something that I get to bring and say, this is something I'm proud of, and it really aligns with my philosophy of education. And like you were just saying, that as much as I want my students to leave at the end of the day, at the end of the year, stronger students and stronger in math and stronger in reading and writing, I also want them to leave stronger human beings and people who can go out into the world and extend grace outside of the walls of our classrooms. So that's something that I'll hopefully get the opportunity to talk to people about in interviews and show them my book as something that as a tool that I'll get to hopefully use in my classroom, and something that I'm proud of, and something that I have already gotten to use in practicum classrooms, and present it in such a way. So, yeah.
Great. So now that we know how you created your book, we would love to hear it.
Sure.
Would you read it for us?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And while you set up, I'd just like to say thank you for sharing your experiences with us. And thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to share with us. And we are just so glad that you came. So now please enjoy Louie Wonkers Drives Me Bonkers.
All right, Louie Wonkers Drives Me Bonkers. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a great battle. That was by Plato. And I dedicated the book to the loves of my life, my husband Gene, who is also in this book, and Liam and Veda Sue. All right, so here we go. Louie Wonkers was my seat partner in the 4th grade, and boy did he drive me bonkers. Why, oh why did my teacher have to sit me next to the rudest, squirmiest, noisiest, pencil-poking, ear-twisting, booger-flicking, loudest burping kid in class? Ay, 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 I was certain 4th grade would be the worst year ever. My name is Rosie, and this is my hard-to-believe story. Louie was the naughtiest kid in class. Whenever our teacher asked us to write our names at the top of our papers, Louie would write his at the bottom. When our teacher called Louie's name for attendance, he would answer with a belch. He was constantly sticking pencils up his nose, fingers in my ears, and glue in my hair. If I told on him, he'd say I was exaggerating. Louie Wonkers was driving me bonkers. It had been a particularly lousy week. Louie had stuck gum in my hair on Monday. He pulled my chair right out from underneath me on Tuesday. He tripped me in the hall on Wednesday, and I fell into the boys' bathroom. On Thursday, Louie stuck a booger on my math homework, and during lunch on Friday, he dumped his orange juice all over my cheese pizza. Louie Wonkers, you drive me bonkers. I was in an extraordinarily bad mood when I got home from school that Friday. My dad could tell something was bothering me. "You okay, Rosie?" he asked. "No, Dad, Louie Wonkers is the worst seat partner ever." I told my dad everything about Louie. I didn't leave out one single detail. He listened quietly and nodded occasionally. When I finished, he said something I'll never forget. "Rosie, it sounds like Louie needs grace." Grace? Who's Grace? I thought. So this is a two-sided. Was she a magician who could wave a wand and turn Louie into the world's nicest seat partner? My dad explained he wasn't talking about a person. Oopsies. Grace is something you can give and something you can receive. Grace is giving someone a second chance. Grace is choosing patience over impatience. Grace is forgiveness. Grace is moving forward and not holding on to grudges. Grace is getting something good that you do not deserve. Wait a minute. Had my dad heard anything I had said? He wanted me to have grace for Louie, the rudest, squirmiest, noisiest, pencil-poking, ear-twisting, booger-flicking, loudest burping kid in class? Was he crazy? Needless to say, I didn't feel any better after our talk. In fact, I felt worse. Louie had managed to ruin my week, and my dad had officially ruined my Friday. I think my dad must have realized how low I felt. Later that evening, he suggested we go out for some ice cream. The craziest thing happened as we pulled into the parking lot near the ice cream shop. Out of nowhere, ba-bump! Our car shook. What was that? And then I noticed a little old lady had backed her car right into our rear bumper. Luckily, no one was hurt. A man standing on the sidewalk oversaw the accident and shouted angrily at the old lady. "Watch where you're going, you loony." That wasn't showing grace, I thought to myself. "I need to make sure that lady is okay," my dad said, and quickly parked our car. My dad didn't seem to be upset about the accident. I could tell he wasn't thinking about himself or ice cream or what it would cost to repair our bumper. He hurried over and helped the little old lady out of her car. She was fine and made sure that we were okay too. She apologized profusely for bumping into us. It turned out this little old lady was also going through a difficult time, and her story was much worse than mine. Her husband had died the week before. She was sad and alone and had no one to help her collect groceries or run errands. My dad listened as she talked. He asked if we could bring her groceries the next day. He also gave her his phone number and encouraged her to call if there was anything else she needed. She seemed thankful, and I watched her smile as she drove away, this time without bumping into anything. I saw it. I saw what grace looks like. My dad had modeled it for me, and I knew exactly what I needed to do come Monday morning. Louie thundered into class that next Monday. He plopped down at our desk with a thud, then burped in my face. "Hi, Rosie," he huffed. I held my breath and kept calm. I mustered up enough strength to reply, "Good morning, Louie. Did you have a nice weekend?" Louie paused and stared back at me. He seemed confused. On a typical day, Louie Wonkers would have driven me bonkers by now. But that day was different. That day, I was determined to give grace to Louie, just like my dad had given grace to the little old lady in the parking lot. "Hey, Rosie, you have something on your shirt," Louie said, pointing. As I lowered my head to look at my shirt, Louie took his still pointed finger and flicked my nose with it. He laughed loudly and called me a loser. "Have grace, Rosie, have grace," I repeated inside my head. I remained calm. I could tell he was getting frustrated. He rather enjoyed driving me bonkers. Louie Wonkers pulled out all the stops that day. He told a boy in our class that I had a crush on him, which I didn't. He put a bug in my hair, hid my lunchbox in the lost and found, and glued my most favorite pink pencil to our desk. At first, it was difficult giving Louie grace, but I got better at it as the day went on. When the bell rang at 3 o'clock, I could say for the first time all year, today, Louie Wonkers did not drive me bonkers. As I started for home, I heard Louie call my name. "Rosie," he yelled as he ran towards me. I braced for the worst. A stinky burp, a wet willy, a slimy bug, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. Here's your favorite pink pencil." Louie stretched out his arm and handed me my slightly damp, freshly cleaned favorite pink pencil without a smidgen of glue on it. I stood there nearly frozen. Was this truly happening? Was Louie Wonkers being nice to me? I remember thinking that my dad must have been the smartest man alive. He was right. Grace was exactly what Louie needed. Not a magician with a magic wand or an extra week of detention. Grace was a powerful gift, and I decided that day I'd give it away as often as I could. Giving grace to Louie became easier and easier with practice. And believe it or not, Louie Wonkers turned into the world's nicest seat partner. At least most of the time. The end.